Comment, like, subscribe. The bell keeps you notified. It helps the show thrive. People can have phobias of anything, with phobia simply being a more fancy word for fear. This word comes from the Greek phobos, meaning fear. Phobos was even the name of the Greek god / personification of fear. Phobias kind of get a bad rap. There are so many articles and online lists out there saying things like, look at these weird phobias, and stuff like that. This has led to the common idea that a phobia is just being horrendously terrified of a pretty mundane thing, like someone screaming in terror and crying their eyes out over a badger or something. A phobia is way more than just that, however. Having a phobia of something can mean something gives you mild discomfort, stress, or even anxiety. Phobia just meaning being really scared of something isn't the case at all. Anything really can be a phobia. However, there are many phobias relating to the world of language, words, and names too. Logophobia, verbophobia, and onomatophobia are all names I came across for having a fear of words, with there being slight differences between them, like onomatophobia relating to the significance of certain words and their meanings, as opposed to just having a fear of the word itself. Xenoglossophobia is the fear of foreign languages as a whole, with sometimes the fear emphasizing the idea of having to learn or speak a foreign language. The name of some language-based phobias, however, play with language itself, leading them to having names that reflect these phobias, which are almost cruel at points. Take dodecaphobia. This is the fear of the number 12, and while this phobia doesn't relate to language directly, it does play with its letter, as the word dodecaphobia is made up of 12 letters. A phobia that relates more directly to language with a cool name is abohophobia, which, if you couldn't guess, is a fear of palindromes. I say if you couldn't guess because abohophobia is in fact a palindrome unto itself, meaning it's the same backwards as it is forwards. Though perhaps the most well-known language-based phobia, which is seemingly cruelly named, is the phobia of long words, which is named Hippopotomonstrosesquipedaliophobia. At first glance, this sounds incredibly silly for a couple of reasons, and it makes us ask so many questions. First off, why would someone even have a phobia of long words? The pure concept of being scared of a long word sounds pretty dumb. I personally thought that too to begin with, though remember, as I said up top, a phobia is way more than just being scared of something. It's also when something can cause us irrational stress and anxiety. And when we look at this phobia in this light, it starts to make an awful lot more sense. In this regard of long words making people feel stressed, there's probably a lot more people out there who have this phobia than when we initially thought. In fact, despite thinking it sounded silly when I first heard of this phobia, I think it's something I might actually suffer from to a degree myself. Long-time viewers of the channel will know I have a bit of a habit of saying words wrong. Sometimes this is because I'm being lazy and don't look up how to say words properly and presume they are said in a certain way, and to be fair, I do deserve to be called out for that. Though more often than not, I still do check how to say them, but my dumb mouth can't pronounce them properly. I do have a history of speech issues and had to go to speech therapy as a kid, if that's any kind of justification, however. Though when I say a word wrong, it usually comes with a flood of comments letting me know so. These comments range from people understanding to people being really angry. These comments often say something along the lines of, why do you even make videos about names if you can't even say them properly? And after reading that hundreds of times, it kind of messes with your mental well-being just a tad. Name explaining is my career and my main source of income, so knowing my dumb mispronunciations could affect this dream job of mine is really quite scary. I'm sure there are many people out there who have stopped watching altogether because of it. And of course, words that are particularly tricky to pronounce often tend to be longer words, so they do give me huge amounts of stress when I have to write about them, and it even leads to me writing videos sometimes in a way so I don't have to say them as much as other words. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I do in fact completely understand why people would have a fear of long words, as I am one of those people. Anyway, The next question it might make us ask is, why would someone develop this kind of phobia in particular? Well, no one is born with a phobia. They develop over events in our life. What would cause someone to develop a phobia of long words, however? Well, I read a couple of examples, one being from a person's personal experience with long words. This might be, as I mentioned, like myself, who's received countless angry comments online, which has led me to be scared of them. But it could relate to other things too. One theory I read is that it could relate to education. This fear could develop from reading aloud in the classroom and stumbling upon a word, resulting in the whole class laughing. Things like this can really have a great effect on people's mental well-being. It could develop also because you were not taught long words at school, or you came from one culture with shortish words and then lived in a different culture later in life with longer words that you struggle with. There are so many reasons why you could develop this phobia. Though the main question this word makes us ask is, why is the name for having a phobia of long words such a long word unto itself? Well, for that, let's look into how this word came about. It can luckily be shortened to just sesquipedaliophobia, though this is also a pretty long word still. Let's focus on just this part first. As we mentioned, phobia just means fear in Greek, but the former part of this name instead comes from Latin roots. Sesqui in Latin means 1.5, and pedal means foot, so it means 1.5 feet, which I suppose references the length of the word. 1.5 feet isn't particularly long in most cases, but a word being this long is something to be concerned about, that's for sure. Somewhere along the line, this word would go on to be made longer. We don't seem to be sure as to when this happened or who exactly decided to do it, but we seem to have a fair idea as to why those letters/words in particular got added to the start of this already long word. If you didn't notice, the first part of this long name sounds an awful lot like the words hippo and monster, and this was no mistake. Hippopotamuses are pretty big animals, and monsters are usually depicted as being pretty big things too. We use monster to relate to vastness in other words too, like how the Swiss cheese plant is technically called a Monstera deliciosa, with the Monstera part relating to the plant's huge size. So hippos and monsters were added at the start of this word to not only increase the letter count of this word, but to help capture the enormity of this word too, and the fear it creates. Why was it decided to make this word so long though? Well, there's pretty much two theories on that matter. This word could have been made super long out of plain old mean-spiritedness. People can be really mean, and someone may have just wanted people with a phobia of long words to suffer even more by making the name of their phobia incredibly long too. Thankfully, however, there is a more positive school of thought in regards to why this word is so long. A way in which some people are treated for phobias is via confrontation. In example, someone who is scared of heights might be taken to the top of a tall building, or someone who is scared of clowns might be taken to the circus. This is called exposure theory, and while it is definitely not for everyone, it has proved beneficial to many over history. It's thought that by giving this phobia a really long name, it might work as some form of exposure therapy unto itself. Giving it a long name makes people with the phobia confront their fear every time they want to talk about it, allowing them to face their fears, as the saying goes. And not only is Hippopotomonstrosesquipedaliophobia a long word, it's a long word that is actually somewhat easy to break down into smaller parts. A very common way in which people tackle words they struggle pronouncing, big and small, is by breaking them down into smaller, easy to pronounce segments. This can be done relatively easily with this word, despite how intimidating it might seem at first. What makes it especially easy is with the use of the word hippo and monster at the start. As mentioned, these are words that most people will be familiar with, so will know how to say them already, making it much more approachable too. It's something of a my first difficult long word, something to ease you in before tackling more difficult ones. ones, but a word that reminds you that you can say these big words, despite how tough they may seem at first. So, Hippopotomonstrosesquipedaliophobia might seem like a really cruel joke at first, and perhaps it was. Though, let's try and be a bit more optimistic for a moment. Maybe this was a word formed out of care instead of spite, a word that was formed to try and help people overcome their crippling fear of long words via a baptism of fire of sorts. Now, I just pray to God I've been pronouncing it right. This video was suggested by Nancy Moon Smith and BJ Windsor over on my Patreon. Every Wednesday, I put up a video request post on my Patreon for my awesome patrons to leave video ideas on. I then pick one of those ideas to be turned into a video the following Wednesday. So if you have a great idea for a Name Explain video and wish to enjoy Name Explain videos ad-free as well as get exclusive content, then why not support the channel on Patreon? It takes just $1 a month to help the channel in a huge way and get you all these amazing benefits. Visit patreon.com/nameexplain or click the link down below. Name Explain depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, and the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos. $2 a month gets you all that, plus your name here with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/nameexplain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explain. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm NameExplainYT and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and once again, thank you all so much.